Welcome back to this Thursday edition of Focal Point on AFR Talk. Brian Fisher is my name. This is the home of muscular Christianity on Conservative Talk Radio. We spent a considerable amount of time on Wednesday talking about the primary election results in the state of Texas and the effect that our AFAaction.net voter guide had. We had Richard Ford, a Heritage Alliance, on, who helps us put that voter guide together. And he looked at the traffic to the website and believes that the voter guide that AFA produces had a significant impact on turnout and on results. And the same thing could be expected, I believe, in the primary runoff, which is on May 27. And one of the encouraging things for conservatives, it was a primary both for the Republican Party and the Democrats, and about twice as many Republicans showed up to vote in their primary as Democrats showed up to vote in their primary. And we went over the fact the number of conservative candidates that won in the primary election on the Republican side. Republicans have a mix of people with political philosophy, some moderate, some somewhat conservative, some very conservative. And in 12 of the 14 statewide races, the more conservative of the two candidates won. So the voter guide can be of tremendous help in identifying those candidates that may most closely represent our values. Now, there's another primary coming up in the state of Virginia. You're familiar with Eric Cantor. He's in House leadership. And Eric Cantor has disappointed a lot of conservatives over the last couple of years, kind of running in lockstep with John Boehner and other members of the House leadership, often against the expressed position of the Republican caucus. And so Eric Cantor has kind of invited a primary challenge, and one of the men who's thrown his hat into the ring to provide a primary challenge to Eric Cantor is Pete Greenwald. Pete Greenwald is our guest now on our Decision Maker line. Pete, welcome to Focal Point with Brian Fisher.
Hey, Brian, thanks for having me on. That's all great news coming out of Texas, Brian, so just thanks for all your work.
Yeah, you bet. And what's the, give me again the date. I should know this, but the date again for the primary in Virginia. It's in June sometime, right?
It's June 10th, Brian, June 10th. The key date for me is May 27th. Got to have all my paperwork in by May 27th, March 27th here. So.
Now, how can people get more information, Pete, about your campaign if they like what they hear as we're chatting here? Now, we don't endorse on this network and all that, but people might want to get more information about your candidacy, your campaign. Where can they go to get more information?
GreenwaldForCongress.com, Brian, GreenwaldForCongress.com. They can also follow me on Facebook, Greenwald for Congress on Facebook. And I'm also on Twitter, Brian, so I'm all about the social media right now and making this campaign happen. So they can check me out at Greenwald VA07. It's Greenwald VA07. So.
And that's website again is Greenwald. That's WALD, GreenwaldForCongress.com. Well, Pete, you've a 25-year military career. Now you're working at the high school level there in Virginia. What prompted you? I mean, it's a big task to take on a sitting congressman, especially somebody that's in leadership. What prompted you to decide you were going to throw your hat into the ring and provide a challenge, a primary challenge to Eric Cantor, who's in Republican leadership?
Well, Brian, it's an answer to the call of duty. Primarily to support and defend the Constitution of the United States, which I've done faithfully for a 25-year Navy career. Beginning in 1984, I answered the call to fight the Soviet expansion of communism, answering Ronald Reagan's call to fight this good versus evil. So I answered the call then, and then I answered the call in 2008. And after working with a bunch of reservists, I had a command of about 1,000 reservists, Brian, and many of them brand new to the Navy, fresh out of high school, and I welcomed into the Navy Reserve in Columbus, Ohio, at Rickenbacker, and I talked to many of them. They hadn't read their Constitution, but they were taking an oath to support and defend the Constitution. So I would make sure they had a pocket Constitution with their declaration there, But as I saw them deploy and return from deployment around the world to Iraq, Afghanistan, Horn of Africa, around the world, they really inspired me to answer the call again. So I went to Afghanistan in 2008. And then again, while there, my wife sent me a book called Liberty and Tyranny. She's very concerned about the direction of our country, and we remain so today. And in reading that, Marco then challenged us to get back in the schools in what he called his conservative manifesto in his book, Liberty and Tyranny. So I answered the call to come to James River, and I think living out the cadet creed here to challenge cadets to be patriots, to love their country, and to understand the Declaration principles that we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they're endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights. Among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers and sending to govern. So, I answered the call to come here, and then in 2010, after Eric Cantor became a congressman, as you mentioned, he took control of the House, became the House Majority Leader, and I watched him raise the debt ceiling in 2011, and we're already trillions of dollars in debt, and they got the sequester. And I watched again in 2013, Brian. They raised the debt ceiling again after $2.4 more trillion in debt. And I said, well, we looked at my wife across the table and said, we got to do something. And so we jumped in. We answered the call to duty in 2013 in October. And so, the debt enslaves us, Brian. It's really taxation without representation for future generations, including even the preborn, the unborn. So we need to change that. So that's why we jumped in, and so that's what we're doing.
Well, I'm looking at your website here, greenwaldforcongress.com, and you have a description of the positions that you take on the various issues. And you've got securing the border, protecting life, and the national debt, kind of 1, 2, and 3, then national security, right to self-defense, repealing Obamacare, term limits for congressmen. So you kind of spell out exactly where you're coming from. And what you've drawn our attention to here, you've mentioned the sanctity of life. That's an important value to you. But you started off by talking about the national debt. And I'm looking at your position paper here, and you indicate flatly, I will vote no on any bill to raise the debt limit. Now, it seems to me this would be one of the ways that would really distinguish you from Eric Cantor, because we just went through this debt limit vote where John Boehner and Eric Cantor and McCarthy, the members of the leadership team, they actually voted to increase the debt ceiling against the wishes of the Republican caucus. I think 199 Republicans voted against that thing. Only about 27 Republicans voted for it, but one of the Republicans that voted to increase the debt ceiling with no concessions whatsoever from President Obama was Eric Cantor.
That's right, Brian, and that just re-energized my campaign. And, Brian, at that point, I didn't expect anything different at that point. I'd already seen it in 2011 and 2013, so to see it again, they had already raised the white flag of surrender in the past, and we just got it again. So it just re-energized me to continue this effort. I'm doing, Brian, I got a full-time job here, help, leading my cadets, and I got another full-time job running for Congress. But as I was at Fort Riley going to Afghanistan, Brian, it said this. It said, "No sacrifice too great. Duty first." That's what we do. So that's the motto of the Big Red One.
Now I want to pin you down on one thing here, because I've had candidates on this program before, Pete, that have said the same thing that we just heard you say, that they're going to vote no to increase the debt ceiling. I had them sit right here in this studio and make that pledge. And then when the time came to actually cast the vote, there was so much pressure. They were getting pressure from the leadership of their own party, and they wound up not being able to maintain their promise. We've had congressmen say, look, if President Obama wants to shut down the government, I'm going to let him do it before I will cast a vote to raise the debt ceiling. So, Pete, I want to get you on record here. I mean, you said it on your website. You said it once here on this program. But you say, I will vote no on any bill to raise the debt limit. Why should the voters of Virginia believe that you will keep that promise?
Well, if you look a little farther down, Brian, you'll see I'm in favor of term limits. Brian, I'm not a career politician. I'm a naval officer. I'm very happy here at James River High School, leading my cadets. This is not about I'm not about getting reelected at some point. We just need to go out and do the hard thing now. And the preamble says we're supposed to secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. We're not doing that, Brian. we need a change, and I need to start with a change in leadership. So for me, it's really, Brian, what's going to drive me. It's a moral issue. We need to do the hard thing now. We can't, call the proverbial can down the road. We can't kick that down the road anymore. If we don't say no, just like at the kitchen table, Brian, when I sit down with my wife and we talk about our family budget, we don't want to pass down a debt to our children. We have to work on, make sure the house paid off, the car's paid off, make sure all your debt's paid off, be financially free so that you can bless your children. Well, that's no different, Brian, across America, and that needs the same thing for our federal government. So if you keep raising the debt ceiling, you never do the hard thing and address the things that drive the debt ceiling, the debt, and that's we're not dealing with Social Security and Medicare, Medicaid, and perhaps even if interest rates go up, the interest alone, the debt would move from $200 billion to something much greater, and we consume our entire budget. We have to do something now.
Well, I've seen some projections that even if at current dynamics continue, we will be spending more on the national debt, just serving the national debt by 2020 than we are spending right now on national defense. So you're exactly right. This is an out-of-control problem. I think the Cato Institute calculated that if we froze federal spending, which we'd have to do if we didn't increase the debt ceiling, we couldn't borrow money, so we'd have to only spend what came in. And if we only spent what came in, well, you'd have a balanced budget by the close of business that day. You wouldn't have to get an amendment or anything. You'd have a balanced budget by 5 o'clock that day because the government would not be able to borrow any money to increase spending. Well, talking here with Pete Greenwald. He's running against Eric Cantor, not the only one in that Republican primary. But, Pete, as we get closer, I know people are going to want to check out our voter guide. They can compare your record, your positions on the issues to those of Eric Cantor, the other candidates in that race. So as we get closer to June 10, we'll make sure people are aware of that resource. And Pete, we may have occasion to have you back on the program. Appreciate you taking time to be with us, and just want to say God bless you, Pete, and your desire to serve God in the public arena.
Well, Brian, I appreciate if your listeners could just lift us up in prayer, need that prayer support, and of course they can send $8 over that would be helpful, and they can come help us. Those in District 7 come help us get some signatures on a Saturday. That'd be great too.
Our guest has been Pete Greenwald. He's a candidate running in the Republican primary against Eric Cantor, 7th District in the state of Virginia. Well, again, Pete, thank you for being with us. His website, greenwaldforcongress.com. Focal Point, AFR Talk. Be right back.